Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everyone. If you are responsible for leading a team or you own a business and you're thinking that things aren't flowing as well as they probably could or should, did you know that there is science involved in that? Leadership, the synergy between people, neuroscience. He knows all about that. We're going to talk more about leadership because that is his forte, as he is an executive coach and founder of Coaching for Relevance, helps people all the time, individuals, CEOs, everyone, move their game forward. He is Randy Swaim. He's back with us. Randy, welcome. How you doing?
Good. Been good, and glad to be back again, buddy.
Yeah, it's great to have you back here. I learned so much. We pick up on these little nuances of leadership. And
hmm
where do we begin today? Where do you want to pick up?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me just kind of start and give a few minutes. And what we'll do, as I mentioned, is we'll sort of dovetail out of kind of what we focused on last week, where you remember we were talking about true synergism, where it's not when you're talking about true synergy in your team. And all of this, by the way, is very aligned with organizational maneuverability, my concept of leading teams in an unpredictable environment and being successful. And when you're talking about true synergy and true synergism, that doesn't mean everybody on your team is exactly the same way. They don't think exactly the same. And in fact, you think about it, we talked about it last week, where you have different factors that come on the scene a lot of times. And guess what? If all of your people are thinking exactly the same in every situation, guess what? They may not be even aware of this other factor that's coming on scene or know what to do to adjust on it. And that's kind of what we focused on last week. But what I'll also kind of point out on this week, and it's actually a little bit of a hint of what you were kind of mentioning before we started the recording and stuff. But when you're talking about leading your team in a rapidly changing environment, like I said, it's last week I mentioned it's very normal that sometimes you may have two people on your team that see this other factor and they're focusing and they're going and they're thinking about what needs to happen and things like that. And other people are thinking of this goal ahead of you. But you know what? If they come together with a synergistic approach where you can make decisions that, and it may be adapting it this way a little bit for right now, but minimizing any risk that comes on the scene with this other factor and still keeping you on the journey of being able to get to the point where you're looking to go and things like that. Then that's kind of an art form in a lot of ways. And it doesn't mean everybody, if everybody on your team is thinking exactly the same, guess what? You're probably not getting there. The other thing that I'll kind of point out there, and of course, as a manager, if all you're doing is telling your people to shut their brains off and just do what I say, you are completely misreading this entire situation. And that's what a lot of people sort of do. But here's the thing. One of the things that I was on a NPN hub for neuroplasticians. I led a roundtable event last week, and it focused on defining moments. And here's the thing, and this, in a sense, kind of touches base on what you were mentioning before we started the recording and stuff. But when you talk about defining moments, guess what? If you have, let's say that you have 10 members on your team. If 3 of them are aware of this factor over here that's coming on scene, and they can kind of work to minimize the impact of that as everybody's going forward, guess what? That's synergy and that's teamwork. But here's the thing. As a leader, you kind of want to think about times where on 3 of those members, guess what? They may be coming up on a point which is a defining moment in their professional journey. And guess what? They may be successful on it. And when they're successful of it and you hit better results that nobody else would have expected or predicted, the rest of the team may hit a defining moment because their awareness of that went up. Or if they realize that a struggle is starting to happen over here, they may come up with a defining moment of how that really applies and what they need to really do, and thinking perhaps a little bit different, maybe. And so when you're talking about this aspect of what we talked about last week, this is just another insight of that. And here's the thing: when you're the leader of a team professionally in any organization, if you're the CEO and you're looking to really develop your organization, guess what? It doesn't mean everybody should be necessarily distracted, but if you're basically trying to lead your team in a way where they completely shut their brains off and go with what somebody told them, you're not getting the job done, and you're not preparing your team for radical results in the future when those factors may come on scene. And it's really important there when you're talking about that, and you're talking about those kind of situations. And like we talked about last week, that true synergy aspect of it. And it's critical to understand when you're being a leader, are you truly leading your team where they are, in some cases, coming up to a defining moment in their growth journey? And you're not just kind of shutting their brain off and talking them through something, but they are bringing in the awareness and the experience and the decision making and the processing in the brain to be able to really see what the radical result is for this situation. And guess what? If they have that awareness, they may bring to the team an awareness of how the results can be a lot more radical than anybody thought about, kind of thing. And so it's just one aspect of what when you're talking about the neuroscience aspect and how the brain works and how you're really bringing that to success in your team. It doesn't mean everybody needs to just shut their brain off and just go with what you say. Not necessarily. That's not real leadership. But when you engage in your people in such a way that they become aware of things that they weren't aware of before, and they gain insights that they didn't see before, because somebody was just wanting them to just shut their brain off and go over here. Don't even, just forget that. Just go over here, kind of thing. If this is a huge distraction, yeah, that can be bad. But guess what? That can be a factor that comes on scene that hurts you just before you hit your goal, kind of thing. You never know. And as a leader, are you really developing that processing ability? And this is a key aspect also of true situational awareness. And all of this, the neuroscience aspect, the team synergism that we talked about last week, and the true situational awareness, all of this sort of is coming together on that whole picture. You're getting ready to say something.
Yeah, I'm wondering, we, as a leader, how can you stimulate the brains of the people that you lead, and engage that neuroscience that we talk about, to look at things in a different way, to really move the company forward? How can you, I don't want to say press the button. I don't know if I can say like automated, but
it can be good.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
Suggestions on that.
That would make it easier.
It would. It definitely would.
Yeah.
I think they call that AI, but anyway.
You're right. But I'll tell you, the real aspect on that is, and it's kind of wild, but the real aspect on that is bringing a neuroscience awareness to you as the leader as well, kind of thing, and understanding how the brain works, how the processing happens. Is somebody just going back to rote academic things that they thought was true 20 years ago, kind of thing, and it's not true now, kind of thing? And but the other part of this is, and the way you help that with your team is by truly using a coaching approach, a coaching facilitative style in your team. Because I will tell you this, that some of the ways that I do it when I'm working with pilots is I'll sit there and in fact, I'll just share this because you kind of shared this before we started recording. You talked about a friend of yours that had just gotten his pilot's license, and you rode with him and came back in and landed. He did fine and all that, but you could tell he was nervous. He was not overly comfortable, kind of thing. And but you know what? When you're dealing with somebody like that, and like I said, even when I deal with pilots or leaders, one of the things that I typically do is I ask them the right questions that get them truly processing that aspect about it. And in fact, one of the things that when you're talking about, if you got somebody on your team that sees this other factor coming on board, instead of saying, just shut up, don't even think about that, just go with what I told you to do, that's unprofessional and it's not leadership. What I would do is I would say, well, let me ask you this. What do you think is the potential risk that can have? Give me some thoughts on it. What are your thoughts process? What are you thinking? And if that does come on scene, what are you going to do about it? What do you think the team should do about it? Now, in my mind, I already have some ideas on it because I'm the leader of the team. But if all I do is have them shut their brain off and just go tell them what to do, I'm not getting the job done and I'm not developing my team. And if all you're doing is trying to make everybody do exactly the same way and think exactly the same way, you're missing the boat on true synergism and synergy in your team. Because there are going to be people, if you got 10 people on your team, certain factors that come on scene, you may see 3 or 4 of them that your team see, that see that factor and have a picture processed in their mind of the possibility that can be coming on scene, either good or bad, where the other 6 may not, and I'll tell you, if I'm leading a team, particularly in an unpredictable situation, I'll tell you, I want my team thinking about the prospects. I want my team thinking about it. And I think I've shared this with you before, Steve. One of the things that I do with jet pilots that I'm training and certifying, a lot of times, one of the things that I'll ask them is this simple question. And I simply say, hey, as you go forward, when you leave here and you go out flying, what do you think is the least expected factor that might come on the scene in the next 6 months? And I just let them process that and think about it. Now, if you got somebody that mentally simply just goes to rote, superficial academic things where they're just trying to find the right academic answer that they think you want to hear, you are missing the boat. What you want to do is get them to process it and think about it in reality and get a picture on it. And then the follow-up question after that, I would say, is, if that comes on scene, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What do you think is the biggest risk that might be another factor? Guess what? If you're in mountains, that may be bad. If you're over the ocean, may not be overly bad, kind of thing. But the bottom line is, as you're leading your team, and that's kind of a little bit of a dovetail out of what we're talking about. And if you think about this, as I think I mentioned a second ago, if you have unexpected factors that come on scene and half of your team recognizes it and has a picture of a processed picture of it and a process strategic picture in their mind as to what you need to do, then the other team doesn't, guess what? One of those 2 may be coming up on a defining moment in their leadership journey, may be coming up to a defining moment in their success and their progress. As a leader, how are you going to encourage that? How are you going to help that? How are you going to make them sense that, kind of thing, and help them picture what is truly important for them? And so it's really interesting when you look at this, that when you're talking about, leading your team, particularly in a rapidly changing environment, don't just make everything be exactly the same, because guess what? And you kind of implied this a minute ago, but guess what? Everybody on your team's just a little different. And you know what? That's okay. That's good. You can still create the synergism and the oneness and the synergy. and really bring radical results to your team. And so it's just, when you think about this whole concept of the processing and the neuroscience and how the brain works, when you're talking to your team, if you're talking to the people that see this new factor and the other people don't, at one aspect you go, okay, what are you not seeing? What are you predicting? What are you thinking about? Or with the other team, what are you missing? Why didn't you think about it? Kind of thing. And just getting them some processing going within their brain so they don't just go, because I'll tell you, you'd be surprised at how many people in my professional journey I have heard say, and this is because of the way they were taught. You would be surprised at how many people I have heard say they just go with some rote, superficial academic thing. And when it doesn't work out right, when it doesn't succeed, they just cast blame on everything else on planet Earth. You know what? That's not being professional. You could have got there. But if even if it's one of those factors, and Steve, you probably know this, but guess what? In your journey, there are sometimes a factor out there that is so huge and so down the road from you that you're probably not really going to get there. It may be that if I can get halfway there, I'm much better, kind of thing. And if you think about it, kind of what does that really look like for you today? And like I said, this aspect of the synergism, and I mentioned a quote last week that talked about it's just not a collective thing, but true synergism is when it's a collective, individual source of the success and benefit from each person in your team. It's not just what everybody does the same. It's the true combined, additive synergism that is collective from each of the people. That is true synergism, not just everybody doing it the same. And so when you're thinking about leading your team, you got to kind of keep this mindset of neuroscience and all that, but also realize that would you be able to go in this direction a little bit if two people on your team were going to reach a defining moment in their leadership growth that is going to make double the rewards for this company, double the benefits out of this situation? Maybe so. But these are all aspects that so often people in today's world forget about, don't think about, and are sort of unsure of. But when you're talking about, like I said, what we talked about last week with the true synergism and everything, this is just one way we're sort of can dovetail going forward. It's not just about pointing fingers and just telling people what to do and all this kind of stuff. Are there times when you may have to do that? Maybe. But as a leader, do you have clarity and awareness on when you should do that and when you shouldn't do that? Because you're shutting your people down. So it's just interesting.
I'm learning here. A key aspect of a lot of this is ask questions of your team. Ask questions. Let them answer.
It's a coaching facilitative style. And if you get a picture of the true coaching, and I'll tell you what, that's where I have brought so much success to pilots that I've trained, and also to business people that I've coached, and different people that I've coached, and actually brought this to teenagers, also youth kind of thing. But it's this aspect of when you're talking about a true leadership style, the real benefit of a true leadership style is what I refer to as a coaching facilitative style, where you're truly bringing out the best in your people. And guess what? They're going to be able to make the right decisions when you're not there. They're going to be able to make the right decisions when everything that came on scene of factors is completely unexpected and unpredictable. because of the way that you kind of understood the neuroscience aspect of it, and you're not just leading them to the answer you want it to be, because you're being dysfunctional when you do that, but asking them the right questions that help them really sense and perceive and understand and have vision of that benefit. And that's what you just said is correct. When you're talking about using the right questions, not just arbitrary questions, what color is the sky, you know, kind of thing or whatever. I guess that depends on which time of day you look at it. But the bottom line is it's asking the right questions, and sometimes asking it ahead of time so they can perceive it. They can pursue the processing of it and come up with the answer. And guess what? It may be an answer that you never thought of, even as the leader. I mean, there may be a time when they give you an answer and you go like this, you go, good answer. And then when you walk away in your mind, you're going, oh yeah, you know what? That I did not, good kind of thing, you know, because even leaders do not have every single answer in every single situation. And that's where that whole concept of synergism in your team is radical. But guess what? Sometimes people may, you know, run into their defining moment on this growth. And a lot of times that can happen just because you ask the correct question. And like you said, that coaching facilitative leadership style is why that is so critical.
Well, it goes back to also praising, you know, like you said, you know, somebody comes up with an idea. I think a lot of us forget to do that. We're just on autopilot.
Yep.
I'm going to ask a key question right now. How do we connect with you? Somebody has a business. They're dealing with some leadership challenges, staff issues. How do they start that conversation with you, Randy?
The easy way to do it would be, in fact, you can see my right up here, you can see my website. And if you go to my website, right at the bottom of the homepage, and by the way, when you go to my website, it has a great picture of a military pilot flying here, and the camera is like looking right over his shoulder, and you see it flying. About 3 seconds after you get there, a banner comes up for my autobiography, and you can just click on the X to get that to go to the side or whatever. But if you go down to the bottom of the homepage, it has you'll see that it has my email and my cell phone. And people, and I think you know this, but people, if they want to reach out to me, I'm not going to do a big sales pitch per se. Now, if they just need to have a chat, okay, so be it. If it turns out they got a real issue that they need a coach to help them with, yeah, we'll come up with something. But I look to build relationships, and that's what I look for. So yeah, but if they go to that website, to the very bottom of it, you can see my email and my cell phone.
You're wired. It's in your DNA to help people. You know, this is not a hard pitch sales, anything like that. Somebody's got a challenge. You can help them with the solution. It's as simple as that. Starts with a conversation, communication.
And you know what? I will tell you this, that if the answer to your problem is simply arrived at by me asking you the right question and just one question, am I going to charge you for that? No. I'm going to ask you a question kind of thing. But the bottom line is it is key. And I just share this with you. I tell people that one of my goals is that 20 years after I take my last breath, I don't care if people don't really remember my name per se, but what I hope is people are still getting my autobiography. But what I hope is that they remember that 20 years ago, there was this guy that brought this insight out. And I'll tell you what, I applied it to my life, and man, things are so much more amazing. And even if they don't remember my name, they realize that, and it's made a difference in their life. That's what I'm about, and that's what I want after I take my last breath.
Love it. You're not going anywhere.
That's true. That's true. I like you guys.
And you know what? Here's where everybody should go to Amazon or the website and check out the book. There's a lot of insight, a lot of great stories, especially if you want to up your game as a leader and move things along in your life and also your business. Randy, thank you so much for being here again today.
Sounds good. Well, listen, Steve, we'll see you again for sure.
Absolutely. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.